Well, hello, everybody. Nice to see a group of smiling faces again at our August Oregon City Business Alliance Forum. Again, Elizabeth, you did a fantastic job. Those asparagus are humongous. When I go grocery shopping, I never see asparagus that big anymore. So we're getting to eat healthy with the greens. Well, we've got an exciting presentation today from Karen and Barb that's going to be talking about the 6-cent gas tax that's going on the ballot measure. A lot of the decisions and thought process went into this before it went on the ballot, whether to do a vehicle registration tax or go this route. And whether you're familiar with actually how it'll be structured, it's a 7-year program. 60% of all the revenues will be kept by the county. 40% will be distributed to the cities. And the cities have a lot of flexibility as to where their portion of the money is spent. And at some point in time down the road, we'll have a presentation from our city manager, Tony, or our public works director, John Lewis, someone to kind of delineate in greater detail as to how that 40% will be distributed. But still has to be approved. So that's why we're not going, getting the cart in front of the horse. A lot of other things that are going on right now that are critical to our community. One I'd like to touch on is the urban renewal ballot measure. It has been determined that there are enough signatures to go ahead and get it on the ballot. We've been meeting with a lot of our elected officials. We have officially formed a PAC, or reinitiated our original PAC called the Friends of Oregon City, which will be funding the opposition to the urban renewal measure. And if you're not familiar with it, what it represents is that, and correct me if I'm wrong, William, but any projects that are within the Oregon City boundaries that would be seeking urban renewal funding would need to go to a vote of the people. And as we all know, it's easier for people to vote no on things than it is to vote yes. Close enough for today. Next month's presentation actually is going to be on urban renewal, so you'll be able to get a real better understanding as to what the proponents of this ballot measure are seeking to accomplish and what we at the Oregon City Business Alliance think is a more appropriate idea, to have as many resources and tools in your toolbox as possible. But we're going to go ahead and meet afterwards up in the sanctuary with anybody who wants to be a part of the team. That'll be engaged. Yeah, it'll be a prayer session. We'll be on our knees, begging, humbly begging. But it's important because it's not very long till the election. As you know, that's in November. And we need to get organized with lawn signs, websites, Facebook posts, anything we possibly can to get the message out. Fortunately, we have a lot of people who are members of the Oregon City Business Alliance that already have talents, businesses that can assist us in that endeavor. In conversations with the mayor, we've already got verbal commitments between $10,000 and $15,000 to go into our PAC. We're hoping to raise closer to $40,000 in total. We really want to do a grassroots, all hands on deck campaign to make sure that this doesn't go any further. It's critical that we have urban renewal for projects like the landfill to be able to get off the ground. Let's get into our topic for today. So Karen and Barb, you have the floor.
I'm actually going to start out with a little tiny disclaimer. I anticipated going to the dentist this morning and having a broken cap popped off and a temporary put on and go on my merry way. It was a lot more involved than that. I guess they had to do Novocaine and chisel the old cap off. So I was there for 2.5 hours instead of like half. I know, but half my face is numb. So
I'll scoot you over here for the microphone for the TV.
oh goodness. Well, I'm going to be over there most of the time. So anyway. If I slur or drool, it's not the topic or the company. It's just, too much information, I guess. So evidently someone saw the presentation we made to the Clackamas County Association or the Business Alliance and asked if we'd come over and share what information we have on the funding measure, the transportation funding measure that's going to be on the ballot in November. Happy to do that. But I'm much more intimately involved in that group, and I knew how much background information they had. So I'm starting out with a little bit of information about the county and what has brought us to this, to quote Mr. Giffords, this crossroads or roundabout regarding the funding. So, you know, roads are everywhere. You want them to be safe. You want them to be smooth. We have 800 miles of city roads in Clackamas County, 1,400 miles of paved roads in Clackamas County, and 222 miles of state-owned roads. Did I say city roads or county roads to begin with? I'm sorry. This is the crux of the issue that has brought us to this initiative on the ballot. We have costs that are increasing at 4% and, costs increasing at 4% and the revenues are either flat at 2% or actually decreasing. As we've gone through the last 4 years of the recession, non-recession, pseudo-recession, the costs were even below that, or the revenues were even below that. That's for a number of reasons. Fuel efficiencies have increased. There's fewer cars on the road. There are no inflation factors built into the mechanisms, the gas taxes that we do have. And the secure rural schools, does everybody know what I'm referring to? The forest dollars that went away from the feds. We got, in 1989, we received $4,705,000 in secure rural schools dollars. In 2013, we received $890,000. And then last year we received $200,000. And Senator Wyden literally begs, borrows, and steals. Every year he goes back there and just works himself to death just to get a few more dollars sent our way for those. I think mainly so people don't forget about it and in hopes that someday we might get something back, but right now there's nothing on the table. And this little diagram is a favorite of mine. I call it the jaws of death, because we actually recognized it as far ago as 1997. When you project it out, you could see that if costs kept increasing the way they were and we didn't get any additional revenues in, we were going to reach this point where you just couldn't operate anymore. So in 1997, we put a $15 per vehicle registration fee on the ballot, and of course it failed. We also put a 3-cent per gallon gas tax, and that failed as well. And in 2003, we put a 23-cent maintenance fee on the ballot, and that failed. The point I was trying to make with these is that it isn't that no one has watched and that no one said anything. Because in 2013, let me find my note here, to bring us up to snuff, it would have been $13 million in arrear. And now in 2016, we're $17 million in arrears. So the picture just gets getting murkier. As much as we'd all like to pretend that no new taxes is a good idea, and we don't want to pay more taxes, and we all have our various positions that we're in, the reality is if we want to continue to support a healthy and vibrant, in this case, road infrastructure system, we just have to make a choice at some point to support it into the future. Oh, I can go ahead and share these stats. They added a little, this probably should have gone a little later on. So right now, with the fuel taxes we're paying, it's $4.25 per vehicle each month. And that's about a total of $51 a year. The additional 6 cents tax on a total of $6.13 per month for a total of $73.56 per year. So some of the things we do for our roads and things we need the dollars for are to maintain and repair the existing roads. Obviously, we want the roads open and traversable for our emergency response systems. We need to be able to construct new roads as the need is, and certainly to provide the safety projects, the sidewalks and ADA ramps and things of that nature. Local cities receive money from sources that the county doesn't. They get state and local fees. We only get state revenue and no local fees, and then the state has federal and state revenue both. I threw in this to show the map of the county. just how large it is, and that disappears on the screen. So about a third of it is federal forest. Everybody aware of that? And then this is the urban area up here, and all of this is unincorporated Clackamas County. Our most southern boundary is actually north of Salem, just north of Salem. So it's a big county, 1,800 square miles, a little over that, 1,849. And we're responsible, those 1,400 miles are all over there. There is a map on your, similar to this, on your table that I'll talk about a little bit later, but it has this, and then it has the areas color-coded the county is proposing as its first paving packages. But it does have a good representation of the map of the county. A little bit more detail on what we have to maintain. We have 180 bridges, 700 miles of road striping, the 1,400 miles of paved roads I mentioned, 1,900 manholes, 2,400 miles of gravel shoulder, 8,100 culverts, 9,300 catch basins, almost 27,000 traffic signs, 111,000 feet of guardrail, and the Canby Ferry, which is a form of transportation. So this graph is a representation of the status of the roads right now. 54% of our roads are in fair to poor condition. And our goal, as we've been decreasing over the last decade, is to keep our good roads, not even our excellent roads, which the only time a road is excellent is about the first month it's on the ground. It starts deteriorating after that, is to keep the good roads from becoming fair roads, and that is a lot of work. So 78% of total roads are in fair or poor condition, of the local roads, I'm sorry, that's where I was going with this. The roads we do attend to first are the collectors and the arterials. They're the roads that have thousands of trips on them per day. And the local roads are the ones that have, most of them have fallen apart. They're literally going to have to be rebuilt. So what's on the table? The commissioners spent 3 years doing a lot of outreach. We've been talking to, haven't been to this group, but to a lot of the community-based groups, trying to get a feel for what people knew and understood about the road system, what they thought about the road system, and it was as varied as the topic itself. You know who knows a lot about the condition of the roads is the folks up on Mount Hood, and I think it's weather-related. They know it, and they know it well, and they appreciate the road crew. Some of them they know about on a first-name basis. And then the further south you get, there's a little bit less familiarity. We talked to them about all the different types of funding mechanisms, anything that wasn't either a fuel tax of some sort or the vehicle registration fee. There was a real lack of familiarity. Some of the cities have fees assessed within them, and others have taxes. But as we got into the larger part of the rural area of the county, there was a real lack of understanding of what that would mean to people. They couldn't relate to it individually. So they really didn't think that those were anything they were interested in. They leaned much more towards the VRF or the gas tax. But by the time we got through, I think we spent 2 years on outreach. We did a survey, and we got really good response that people knew more about what we were talking about. They knew more about the road system, they understood the condition that it was in, but they still weren't interested in paying any additional taxes. We still could not budge that needle more than about 2% as far as anybody that was willing to pay for anything more. So the commissioners grappled with it over the last year, talked to the cities, worked with the cities internally, got a lot more information on it, and then decided to put what you might have remember seeing on the ballot last May. The question is, if we were to bring something forward, would you be interested in considering it for a vote? And we at least got a nice round 68%, which is a really solid number when you're looking at survey numbers, to consider it and take a stab at it. So a yes is better than a no any time of day from our perspective. So we worked with the cities and talked about different types of funding mechanism. And ultimately, the two jurisdictional bodies decided on a fuel tax. And that's for a couple of reasons. One, it really is perceived by the public to be the most fair, the most equitable. Vehicle registration fees, people can have a number of cars, a lot of farmers have multiple numbers of cars, They register them. They don't really drive them that much. You know, they felt it was a additional burden to them, and that the gas tax was fair. The other thing, there's just been a successful levy passed in Portland. That seemed to mean a lot, that people were kind of recognizing that. And I think, Karen, do you remember any other reasons why the gas tax was slightly favored? I think those are the two big reasons. So they looked at what was going to make this package most favorable to folks. So we also included the 7-year termination. So they're going out for a limit of 7 years, and the gas tax, and then we are going to be putting the money in an account. We would have probably anyway, but this money will be just the money generated from the levy, and it will be audited every year specific to that. It will be identified as to what projects were done. If a project wasn't able to be done, which, believe me, stuff happens, the EQ gets involved or whatever, something will happen, but at least you can identify it. The money will stay there if it wasn't used on that particular road. You know, it's a place where folks can go and look and understand exactly what was going on. So that's the other big part of it. As you mentioned in the introduction, 60% of it will go to the county and 40% of it will go to the cities. This is literally the same model as the vehicle registration fee. Rather than trying to negotiate, every city has a different perspective, the county has a different perspective. Rather than trying to wrestle that particular elephant to the ground, we just used the model that was in effect per state law on the vehicle registration fee, and that's a 60-40 split. Based on and the distribution is based on population. So rather than counting gas stations, which come and go, and who sells the most gas, or going down that road at all, it's just divvied up by population. And then the cities, of course, can use their money however they like. Again, the list on your table is the county's list, suggested list, for the 7 years from the county only. And then there is an additional $3.7 million in the package that is for safety improvements only. Intersection warning signs, intersection improvements on warning signs, that kind of thing. These are the paving packages just sort of by their name. They're identified there on your packet as well. So 1,300 miles of paved roads. They have 100 miles less than we do. They have an MSTIP, which is a major street improvement transportation program that they lucked out on when Measure 50 went into effect. It was a temporary tax rate, but when Measure 50 went into effect, it was in effect, so they got to keep it. They've had $8 million a year, per year, more than a comparable county gets. They also have a URMD, an Urban Road Maintenance District, that's been in effect since 1994, that has generated an additional $8 million a year for them. So since the mid-1990s, Washington County's been getting $16 million per year more than Clackamas County. And right now, if you've read your newspaper lately, they are going to impose, after the election, a $43 vehicle registration fee to do yet more road work. So and I'm not criticizing the fact that they need this money. Believe me, that's the $17 million a year we need as well. They've got it, and we don't. And what we're going out for? $5 million a year. And we're going to try to make that work, prove ourselves to the population, to our citizens, let them recognize and appreciate what those improvements mean to them, and then hopefully after 7 years, they'll come back and want to either reinitiate that or something different. Because the one thing, I see a number of real good benefits from the 7-year sunset, but one of the main things is if things change, if technology changes, if the state plan, the vehicle mile tax, where you get taxed by the miles you actually drive, that's under an experiment right now. If that has evolved or developed by then, and it's a better means, then there's things we can look at rather than just being stuck with fuel tax after that standpoint. So I think something really positive will come out of that. Do you want to take questions for things I've shared? Do you want to do your slides first, and then we'll sit down and take questions after that? Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Karen Twelstad, and I'm a public affairs community outreach consultant, and I've been working with the county for probably almost 3 years on this. My perspective is, Barb is director of transportation and development. My perspective is really all about the public policy aspects, and when I first came in, what was interesting, I came in with the idea of why more taxes? What do you mean there's funding needed? There's plenty of funding kind of there. I spent time at this, sorry. Thinking that way from a consumer's perspective. I also reconcile the fact that I have state government experience and city government experience, and no, that's really not the case. But the first gut instinct is you have enough money. There's enough money. So learning what I have learned, particularly that first year, I absolutely came to understand what a real problem this is. I've been a Clackamas County resident for 30 years, care about this community, understand the importance of strong roads to a good community, and now I understand the funding really isn't there. The public does not understand that, however. I was talking with Ken a little bit about, there's smart people in this room. If at the end of this you're not really clear that there is absolutely a problem and this is needed, it won't pass in November, and we'll really need to think about what happens next. So really just want to share with you all of the facts and then open it up to questions and answers and grill us, challenge us, help us understand what we're missing and how we can communicate with the public or what we're going to do if we can't. So public education and outreach. One of the things that we started doing was focus groups, forums, interviews. A lot of, when Barb mentions grassroots, a lot of it's the community planning organizations in unincorporated areas, because that's where so many of our roads are, and heard from people. And then we did statistically valid surveys as well, both kind of phone polling as well as written surveys. And what we found was a lot of people think the roads look just fine. Maybe not some of those in the outer unincorporated areas where the local roads really aren't, but those who are driving just on the traditional roads, 76% said, my roads look just fine. So we had somebody from the Asphalt Association do a presentation one time that said, if that survey was of engineers, the answer would be 0. 0% would say the roads are just fine because they are absolutely in desperate need of maintenance. Other perception, the county has other resources it can use. And I think those fiscal conservatives think there's plenty of money. We know how much we pay in taxes, whether it's city, state, federal taxes. But what the general public doesn't understand is about restricted funding and how we all may say we pay plenty in taxes, but what we don't understand is much of those funds cannot be used for road maintenance. And particularly one of the big discretionary, if you want to call it discretionary, areas of funding for counties is property taxes. But by law, we cannot use property taxes for road maintenance. So as we know, most of the other things on your tax statement are dedicated. You can't take the parks money and put it for roads. You can't take the schools money and put it for roads. So that's the bind we're in. But the public doesn't really understand that. Also from my 25 years of working in the public, they also don't even understand, we forget about city, county, federal, and we don't really care. We had one person tell us one time when we were talking about the different county funding, well, if Washington County has all that, well, why don't we just take some of theirs for Clackamas County? It was a good idea. We liked it. Barb really liked it. And also when we all argue amongst ourselves and we're arguing with the state and we're arguing with the feds about resources, well, that's their problem. That's their funding, but we all know the public doesn't care about that. They want public sector to figure it out. But what's happened is it's not been figured out yet between city, county, and feds. And in Clackamas County, it appears we really need to take care of our own problem or it won't be taken care of. Related to that, people talk about the vehicle miles traveled initiatives, and it's talked about both on a federal level and on the state level. People say, well, we don't have to do anything because that's going to come. I think we all know that if it comes, that's a long time from now. A long time from now. One of the other big things when we did the public outreach, though, beyond all of that, is there's a real lack of trust of public sector. And that is true whether, it tends to be true whether it's city, state, or fed, but it tends to actually get worse the more you go, where the people tend to trust local and then county and then state. But the big thing is public have said, we're going to give you funds, and we don't know what you're going to do with it. Where are they going to go? And so the criticism in Portland, you remember all the front page news. That I actually loved the article, that the politics of potholes front page. And it's like, that is exactly what Clackamas County is trying to avoid. And people were critical of the city of Portland for not making the right decisions. And I don't know the facts behind all the accusations, but there was a lot of criticism about use of funds. That is one of the reasons when we did outreach and focus groups, everybody said, you have to build trust. Set a very specific list of projects, what's going to be funded, where you're going to put the money, have a sunset, prove to us you can do it, and then come back. But we know this $5 million, it's a drop in the bucket. And even if a state fix comes in, it's a drop in the bucket. But with any luck, as people see, as the public sees projects and sees the need, there'll be an opportunity for additional. So we've done outreach, just education to the public, and some of the most compelling things that people, even people who are very fiscally conservative, come to understand is, Barb talked about the percentage of roads today. If there was not any additional funding, this is what the pie chart would look like in just 10 years. And why that is important, so if you see that 79 total percent fair and poor. This is what happens. It is more than 10 times as expensive to rebuild a road as it is to maintain that road. So if we do seal coats and all of that now, we have to dedicate some funding. So if we dedicate 40 million today, we could avoid $523 million in as little as 10 years. So some of our outreach has been pay now or pay a whole lot more later. And it's our kids and it's grandkids. And the biggest issue is the livability of the community, what that means to a community, what it looks like. Safety is another huge issue. And we get calls and criticism a lot about hitting the pothole, going off the road, those kinds of things. The county works very, very hard to ensure that safety, the road conditions do not dramatically affect safety, but we are this close to that not being the case anymore because of that gap. $17 million a year gap. $5 million of that every year is for what we consider operations, so that's not paving. That's brush. I don't know if so many of you followed the Happy Valley. There was a interesting Facebook post by Mayor Dreamer in Happy Valley, very critical of some brush growing in theirs. And I just thought, man, that's fantastic. I'm so glad she did that. That absolutely raises the issue. We think of it as brush, but they were concerned about safety and all that. That's what there's not funding for. Those $5 million a year go for things like that, not just paving. So it's a pretty big gap. So with that, what we wanted to do is just share the basics.
Good.
Thank you, everybody, for caring enough to want to hear about it.